Hey YouTube, welcome back. We have two builds to show you today. This is gonna be a two-part video, one at the beginning and like click to the middle of it. But we're gonna be talking about two-handed melee crit Rive as a Void Knight. I've been wanting to make this video for a while because I've got a lot of thoughts in my mind, but it took me a long time to find the item that I wanted to use in order to try the second part of this build. Two-handed melee crit Rive, you want to use a Titan Heart. If you've seen my EHP video here on YouTube, you know approximately how much effective HP you have as a Void Knight who's using a Titan Heart, and that is approximately like 18,000, I think, which is very much so on the low end of the effective HP for any character. It's pretty low. To play this character, like, it feels very good. I'm currently playing a Void Damage Apathy's Maw two-handed melee Rive, and we're using a third hit. I'll show you my Rive skill tree real quick. We have all the nodes in the top left because I love all of these nodes in the top left. We have the spicy new dual wield two-hander node, the faux cleaver node. And then we also have some more hit damage versus ignite. I wish that I also had extra points to use these second hits, the challenge node, because I love this node. But realistically, I think this is the best way to get extra more, generic more damage for the first, second, and the third hit of Rive. So this is what we're doing with the Rive skill tree. As I played this character using Void Damage, there's a couple benefits to talk about, but there's also one serious downfall. So we'll talk about both of those real quick. As a Void Damage character, as a Void Knight, you get a lot of good stuff. You are a, let's go to, I don't know what the symbols are anymore because they all changed. Anomaly gives you twice as much leech as a Void Damage build than you would be as a physical damage build, for example. So this node would give you 2 leech instead of 1 leech. The other things that would change are in Volatile Reversal. One of the spicy new interesting nodes is this, which is 12% more damage per point. So I've got 36% more damage, but it only applies to Void Damage. It doesn't apply also to physical damage. So especially as a non-damage over time character, I can take this node and also this node, so my Volatile Reversal has lots of juicy nodes that I'm able to spec into here. I was trying out a Devouring Orb thing to have another more Void Damage over time, or sorry, more Void Damage modifier here. Hopefully you spec, 90 Vitality, but if you can't, it's still 10% more damage, and then it gives you more Time Rot to go along with the other nodes there. So the point of this character is you get to scale the damage both on Rive and also on Void Cleave. So your Void Cleave, you're running around and you can swoop through enemies using it as a excellent movement skill. And because we're dealing Void Damage, because we're using our axe, because we're scaling so much, like, this kills a lot of trash monsters. And it feels really, really good as well with all this melee damage to high health monsters. You one-shot a lot of stuff, and then for bosses, you just hold down right click and rive them to death. So the builds felt very, very fun. While I was playing this character, I got to about 400 corruption on it, and like up until the point of 400 corruption, the build felt excellent. It felt really fun to play, lots of good stuff going on in terms of like synergy, gameplay, offense, defense, all of it. However, it came to a point where two things happened. One, it started to become, finally, very frustrating that I'm split damage types, because there is no conversion for Rive. You can have flat damage for vitality, you can have a more Void Damage node here, but you're still split because your weapon has an adaptive implicit, so that 101 melee damage, it's physical because Rive has the physical tag on it. And this has a 95 melee Void Damage explicit modifier, so half of my damage is Void and half of my damage is physical, which means all of my Void multipliers, like the things that I showed you in my Volatile Reversal skill tree, all the Void Shred that I have from Anomaly, the Time Bubble here, all my Devouring, like all of that stuff only applies to half my damage. So it's a little bit frustrating. Hopefully that changes in the future, but that's a different story. And the other thing that became frustrating is, as a Void Knight, I don't really have access to that much damage reduction. For a while, I was using Aurora's Time Glass, but like, it was really a crutch because I was proccing too often around 400 corruption. So I have damage reduction here, I've got this thing here, and like, that's really, I couldn't get much more. I'm using Fiery Dragon Boots right now to kind of cap my crit avoidance, but I only started using these because I was looking to flex around different pieces of gear to figure out what was going on and what kind of options I had. So suffice it to say, I got to a point where my offense was split damage types and my defense was insufficient. So in enter, we're very close to the second part of the video. In enter a different YouTube video that popped up in my feed. Someone had the idea, and I'll link this video in the description, assuming that I can find the video again. But someone had the idea of, instead of using a Apathy's Maw and going void damage, instead they played physical damage and they used a giant two-handed Bardiche. So it has the bleed implicit and then like an ignite suffix. And the idea would be to convert all of your bleeds to ignite using Malin's Hubris, and then use this node, and then use this node down here to get tons of physical penetration. And this has all of your damage pointing in one direction instead of split between void and physical. So I wish that there was some kind of void penetration, or sorry, void conversion in Rive, but because there's not, I really think that this is probably the best way to do it. And the reason that I'm excited for this is that it solves both of my issues. I'm going to go test this out, and then I'm going to splice the videos together, and in 20 seconds from now, you'll see what my reaction is to it. But I think if we take that character and we like do the ignite, consume, physical penetration, two-handed Bardiche Rive, and we trim some of the damage off and we turn it into damage reduction, I think it's going to solve all of our problems. I think it's going to feel really good. So this is the second part of the video. Now that we've swapped over to the physical damage, ignite consuming portion of the build, now that I have my new weapon, and I am absolutely in love, and it's solved the problems that I had with the build previously, and I am going to tell you all about it because I'm very, very happy. So previously we were using I think we're using this weapon right here. It's an Apathy's Maw, and we had a split damage type, which felt bad because there's no void conversion in Rive. And we also didn't have enough defense on our character. And around 400 corruption, we were farming 402. The damage still felt fine. I didn't feel like the damage was the mitigating factor of the build, but the defense did. So I mentioned that there's another person who made a YouTube video. I'll link to that in the description of this video here. But what they were doing is using Rive to consume ignites and then apply a ton of ignites with a Bardiche using Foe Cleaver. So Foe Cleaver doubles the chance to apply an ailment on hit, and it also doubles anything that has like damage on it. So like percent increased damage, flat damage, things like that. So the Bardiche has a implicit with bleed on it and an explicit with ignite on it. This thing here. You can see we have tier 5 ignite there. And all of that is getting doubled from this node. So we're applying a ton of ignites, converting to a ignite using Malin's Hubris, and then using this node to turn that into physical penetration. On single target, this gives us about, I think it's 450. I'll have to go back and watch the clips. I think it's about 450 penetration that we're getting from this. The other thing that we're benefiting from is, well, we no longer have a split damage type. So our damage is much, much higher than it used to be. But like I said before, the damage wasn't the problem. The Void Knight, Void damage, Apathy's Maw build, that was not the problem, that we didn't have enough damage. But if we have this physical damage dealing build, if we're using the Bardiche, if we're doing the thing with the ignites and with this guy right here, it allows us to drop damage in a way that you normally would not do because you'd like to have more damage, generally speaking. So we have a ton of damage. I'm critting the dummy very often with tons of attack speed for about 450, maybe 500k damage. You could get more. You could have 600, you'd have 600, 700,000 damage crits, but I don't think you need that because the problem with this build was not damage. The problem is how can we trim some damage and get defense instead? And I'm in love with this node. We get to take Anvil Stance and never turn it off. We deal 25% less damage and we take 25% less damage, which notably also applies to our damage over time. Normally damage over time is very difficult to mitigate. And this, along with our Titan Heart, actually gives us lots of damage mitigation against damage over time. The fact that we can just like get giga damage and then trim some of it and turn it into defenses is so good. It makes me very happy. So one of the things you'll notice here is that we have 0 points in Paladin, which means we're not using Sigils of Hope. I have a previous video that you can go check out on YouTube about why I'm happy that Sigils of Hope is no longer a mandatory thing to include in your build, in my opinion. So I said that Void Knight is one of the places where I would be happy to include Sigils of Hope, but we're Void Knight and we're not doing that. So our character here, we have no points. We're not getting about 160% increased damage that we would otherwise from our from Sigils of Hope. And instead, we're just doing the whole thing over here with Hammer and Anvil Stance. So what skill are we using instead? Well, we have our Rive. We have our Void Cleave. This Void Cleave could be Lunge as well. It technically could be Smite if you want even more attack speed, but I think Void Cleave does what I want it to do. It's very fun to use as well. We have our Volatile Reversal, spec for 3 nodes down here and increased enemy damage taken, and no points in void damage because we're not a void damage build anymore. But we have all the points spec'd into the quality of life and the cooldown recovery speed, which makes it stack even more. We have Anomaly with +3 levels to Anomaly, which I think is very, very good. If I had +4 levels, I would probably do +4 levels as well. But the +3 levels allows us to put as many points into Void Maw as possible, while also getting Decimation down here for the increased critical strike chance. So the cooldown recovery speed, we trimmed 1 point here to make Lingering Memories instead, which means that our cooldown recovery feeds back into Anomaly, so we have good cast speed and good cooldown the whole time, because I'm basically auto-casting this. I hold it down with my finger, set it and forget it. But what's the 5th skill? So the 5th skill that we're using instead of using Sigils is Abyssal Echoes. So Abyssal Echoes, it does 2 things for me. One thing it only does right now in the short term, and one thing is excellent. So let's talk about the short-term thing right now. Currently, my weapon does not have Armor Shred on it. It should have Armor Shred. It is very, very important to have Armor Shred on the weapon. The ideal weapon, and I should probably put this in the description of the video too, would be Exalted Melee Crit, Melee Attack Speed, Ignite Chance as a suffix, and then Armor Shred as a suffix. And then, if you want to gear the way that I'm gearing, you would also have a sealed tier 1 modifier for less bonus damage taken from crits. That would be the ideal Bardiche for this build, and it would be very, very good. Because as it stands right now, our damage, we're only about 83 melee critical strike chance right now. So like it's good crit chance, but it's not capped. So for Abyssal Echoes, we currently do not have our Armor Shred, which would be doubled by the way. So we're using our Armor Shred from Abyssal Echoes instead. And we're taking this node. So this node is no longer bugged as of last week, and we get to gain 20% more global damage. So this applies to everything that we deal, even physical melee crit damage. So this is 20% more damage and 20% increased attack speed, which feels great for single target. So in all the tier 4 boss kills that I've been posting in this video here, you'll see that we pop our Abyssal Echoes on top of the enemy and the boss dies very shortly thereafter. It feels very good for damage. So I think that about does it for the changes that we made to the build. The other things that you'll see here is we have a bunch of hybrid health all over our character. If we took off all these hybrid health modifiers, you see that we're about 2,700 life, but you'd like to have percent HP and hybrid HP wherever possible. So that's where we're getting those from. We could have even more damage by getting +3 or +4 to our Titan Heart. You can see that I'm in the process of trying to find a +2 or a 2 LP Titan Heart, but we just haven't quite found one yet. I have a 3 LP Malin Cerberus that will be awesome once I find a pair of gloves to go on it. And we have our 2 LP Siphon of Anguish here as well, which gives Doom, which is increased damage taken, but also applies Doom for Shatter Chains to give us more damage, more melee damage per stack of Doom in the enemy. So the gearing process for this character has been excellent. Being able to play a melee character and just like have excellent damage and excellent survivability, being able to take advantage of this node, like not using Sigils of Hope, there's so many small things about this build that I like a lot. So one thing that I will point out to you is there is a issue with this build right now that I have not yet resolved. We have some physical damage here. We have critical strike chance here. We have no physical damage here. We have crit multi and bleed, crit multi and bleed, but we're kind of missing percent increased damage. So let me move my head real quick and I will show you the character sheet on the bottom left of the screen. So we have melee damage, 95, and then physical damage, we have 39. And then you notice that if I take this off, we actually go to -25 because that's the hammer and anvil node that we'd taken previously. So we're actually missing a lot of percent increased damage. Normally, if you're a void damage dealing character, you can use idols that say like void damage if it's skilled echoed recently, percent increased melee void damage. There's a lot of access to percent void damage, even in nodes like this, which give you melee damage. I could take this right now if I wanted to, but instead I've opted into the strength node, which is less, but it gives me armor because I like defense. But if we found a way to get a bunch of extra percent increased damage, that's a stat that we don't have a lot of right now. if we sealed like, you know, tier 1 or tier 2% increased damage, I guess that could be a thing. You could look for physical damage on your affixes, which is hybrid with like bleed duration. I don't think that's what you want to do, but maybe, you know, if you get exalted flat crit on your Bardiche, which would be ideal, then all of a sudden you don't need as much percent crit in other places. And then you can go like exalted physical damage in those to kind of round out the rest of your build and get more percent increased damage, which I'm currently lacking on the character. So I love it. I'm so happy with how this character has turned out. We tried out using an Aurora's Time Glass, but like, it's fine. The fact that we could use a Bleeding Heart and then our 8.8 leech along with the 6% here, which is like 15-ish leech, gets, let's say 15 and then 16 because we have 1 point here, and then 16 triples to 48 or something percent damage leech's health. Feels very, very good. One of the things that I liked most about dealing void damage with this character before we swapped over is that your void leech gets doubled here, and then your void leech kind of gets doubled from this node. So the fact that we get to work in a bleeding heart to get like even better leech, even though we're playing a Phys Damage build instead of a void damage build, it's like the stars aligned, man. It makes me really, really happy. So if you can play this character, if you can deck out your character with 2 LP, 3 LP, 2 LP, 2 LP, you're going to be really happy about it. If you want more damage, just take off this node and have 25% more damage. When I was farming 400 corruption, I felt like damage was never the issue. Even when I was playing the bad version of the build, even when I was doing the void damage, not bad, but even when I was doing the void damage version of the build, 400 corruption, I didn't feel like damage was the issue. I felt like survivability was the issue. And this, oh baby, feels really good. If you end up playing melee builds, if you're doing some spicy technology like not using sigils, for example, let me know in the comment section of this video how your characters are turning out. Or even if you're not playing a melee character, you minion enjoyers out there, let me know how your builds are turning out as well, because I'm technically curious about minion builds as well. I'm still looking for a B build. If you have a B build that works, ship me those B planners, okay? I'll see you next time.